Can a stranger's kindness feel like love? Or just a cruel reminder of what you've lost? The morning after Daniel's funeral, Claire sat alone at the edge of her living room couch. The house was too quiet, almost painfully so. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, falling on the empty armchair that used to belong to her husband. His reading glasses still rested there. His slippers were by the fireplace, waiting for footsteps that would never return. Her son Ethan had left early that morning to return to college. He had hugged her tightly, promising to call every day, but she could feel his relief to escape the heavy silence that filled their home. Claire didn't blame him. Grief was different for the young. They ran from it, while the old learned to sit with it. She tried to make herself some tea, but even the kettle's whistle sounded lonely. Her hands trembled as she poured the cup, and she couldn't help whispering, "Daniel would have scolded me for this mess." It made her smile for half a second, before the tears came again. Quiet. Stubborn tears that had no audience. Every sound in that house reminded her of him. The faint ticking of the clock, the hum of the fridge, the creak in the hallway floor where Daniel used to stop and kiss her goodnight. It all played like a memory loop she couldn't turn off. Then came a knock. It startled her. Sharp, clear, cutting through the fog of her thoughts. She froze. No one had visited since the funeral. The neighbors had already dropped off casseroles. The sympathy cards had been read and stacked neatly on the counter. Who could it be now? When she opened the door, a young man stood there. Tall, maybe 21 or 22. He had soft brown hair, a calm expression, and eyes that carried something gentle, something steady. He hesitated before speaking. "Mrs. Walker? I'm Michael, Ethan's friend from college. I was driving through town and thought I'd stop by. I just wanted to check on you." Claire blinked, unsure how to respond. She didn't know him well, but she recognized the name. Ethan had mentioned Michael once or twice, said he was one of the good ones. She managed a small smile and opened the door wider. "That's very kind of you. Come in." Michael stepped inside carefully, as if afraid to disturb the stillness. He looked around the room, noticing the framed photographs, the wedding picture, Ethan's childhood photos, Daniel's proud smile. He didn't say anything about them. He just took a seat, his hands folded politely in his lap. They talked. Or rather, Claire talked, and Michael listened. She spoke about Daniel, about his sense of humor, his stubbornness, his quiet strength. About how he'd still leave little notes on the fridge saying, "Buy milk. Love you." She hadn't realized how much she'd missed telling those stories until that moment. Michael listened the way few people did, not out of pity, but out of genuine interest. When she paused, he didn't rush to fill the silence. He just nodded, letting her breathe. "You must miss him a lot," he said softly. Claire's eyes glistened. Every minute, the conversation turned lighter after a while. Michael shared stories from college, how Ethan always forgot his laundry in the dorm washer, how he once burned popcorn so badly the fire alarm went off. Claire laughed, covering her mouth, surprised at the sound of her own laughter. It felt good. Strange, but good. When Michael stood to leave, the room already felt emptier again. "I'll check in again sometime if that's all right," he said, smiling faintly. "Of course," she replied. "You're always welcome." After he left, Claire sat on the couch again, staring at the door he had just closed. For the first time since Daniel's passing, the silence didn't feel as suffocating. There was something different now. A tiny spark of warmth in a place that had been frozen for weeks. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about Michael's voice. Calm, kind, careful. She thought about how he looked at her not with pity, but with understanding. She hated herself for noticing that, but loneliness makes strange things feel meaningful. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the windows. She turned on her side, pulling the blanket close. Daniel's photograph sat on the nightstand, watching her as if asking, "Are you all right, Claire?" She whispered back, "I'm trying." The next morning, she woke to the sound of another knock. Her heart skipped. When she opened the door, Michael was standing there again, holding a paper bag and 2 cups of coffee. "I didn't know if you'd had breakfast," he said with that same gentle smile. Claire hesitated, then let him in. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted softly. They sat at the same kitchen table where she and Daniel used to read the newspaper together. Michael unpacked the bag, muffins, still warm. "From the cafe on Maple Street," he said. "Ethan told me it was your favorite." Claire's breath caught. It had been her favorite. Daniel used to bring muffins from there every Sunday morning. She took a bite, tasting memory and comfort all at once. For a brief second, the pain in her chest loosened. Michael looked around the kitchen, then quietly asked, "Do you want me to fix that loose cabinet door?" "It's hanging off a bit." Claire smiled. "You noticed that?" He shrugged. "My mom says I can't help it. I fix things when I see them broken." Something about that line stayed with her. After he left, Claire found herself standing by the window, watching his car disappear down the street. She didn't understand why she cared. Maybe it was just gratitude. Maybe it was something she didn't want to name yet. She turned back toward the living room. Daniel's slippers were still there, the glasses still on the armrest. But now, beside them, sat the empty coffee cup Michael had left behind. The smell of it lingered faintly in the air, warm, alive, almost comforting. And that's when she realized something had shifted inside her. Grief hadn't left her, but loneliness had started to loosen its grip. Still, as she walked through the quiet house, she couldn't shake one thought. Why had he really come back? Was it kindness, or something else she wasn't ready to face yet? The rain outside stopped. The house fell silent again. Then, 3 soft knocks echoed at the door once more. Claire froze mid-step, her heart racing. She turned slowly toward the sound. Someone was back. And this time, she wasn't sure what he wanted. What happens when comfort starts to feel like temptation? The next morning, Claire wasn't expecting anyone. Yet the moment she heard a knock, her heart reacted before her mind did. She opened the door to find Michael again, holding 2 cups of coffee and a small paper bag. "You looked like you could use breakfast yesterday," he said with an easy smile. It was such a simple gesture, but in her lonely world it felt like sunlight. Claire invited him in, brushing her hair back nervously. They sat at the same kitchen table where Daniel used to sit every Sunday morning. The smell of coffee filled the air, familiar, yet painfully new. Michael handed her a muffin. "From that cafe on Maple Street," he said. "Ethan told me it was your favorite." For a second, she couldn't speak. Daniel had always brought her those same muffins. She took a small bite and closed her eyes. It almost felt like time had rewound, like Daniel was still here, laughing softly from across the table. Michael noticed her expression but didn't ask. He just smiled and changed the subject, talking about small things. The drive from college, his part-time job, his dream of becoming a teacher. Claire found herself laughing again, really laughing, the sound echoing through a house that had forgotten what joy sounded like. She tried not to think about how natural it felt, this ease between them. Michael wasn't much older than Ethan, but he carried himself differently, calm, thoughtful, with a kind of maturity that didn't match his years. After breakfast, he noticed the broken cabinet door under the sink. "Mind if I fix this?" he asked, already reaching for the loose hinge. Claire tried to protest, but he waved her off. "I like fixing things," he said. "It makes me feel useful." As he worked, she found herself watching him. The way he focused, the quiet confidence, the small smile when the door finally aligned. "Perfect," he said, dusting his hands. She wanted to thank him, not just for fixing the cabinet, but for bringing a piece of life back into her home. Instead, she said softly, "You remind me of someone." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "Your husband?" She nodded. "Yes and no. You remind me of the way he made people feel. Safe." Something unspoken hung in the air between them. Neither moved. The silence grew warm, almost fragile. Then Michael cleared his throat and stood. "I should get going," he said quickly. Claire nodded, trying not to show disappointment. "Thank you for the muffins," she whispered. As he stepped out, a gust of wind blew through the doorway, carrying the faint scent of his cologne. Clean, simple, unfamiliar. She stood there long after he left, staring at the empty space he had filled moments ago. That evening, Claire sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on. She told herself it was nothing, just kindness, just friendship. But a small, restless part of her knew better. When her phone buzzed, she jumped. It was a message from Ethan. "Hey Mom, funny thing. Michael told me he's been spending time with someone he really admires. Didn't say who." Claire froze, her heart pounding. Outside, the porch light flickered once. Then, a soft knock echoed through the door again. She turned slowly. Michael was back, and this time he wasn't holding coffee. Can love be wrong if it heals what's broken? The days that followed felt lighter. The empty house didn't echo the same way anymore. Every morning Claire found herself expecting that knock, the one that came right when loneliness began to sting. And every time, Michael stood there, with coffee, with small errands, with a smile that asked nothing but gave everything. One afternoon, he brought an old photograph. "Ethan gave me this," he said, handing it to her. It was from graduation day, Ethan in his gown, Michael beside him, both laughing. In the corner of the photo, Claire stood next to Daniel, smiling proudly. She looked younger, happier, unaware that this would one day become a memory that hurt to look at. Claire ran her fingers over Daniel's face in the picture, her throat tightening. "He was proud of them both," she whispered. Michael looked at her for a long time before saying quietly, "You still talk about him like he's in the next room." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes it feels like he is." They sat in silence for a while, watching the rain through the kitchen window. Then Michael reached out and brushed away a tear that had escaped her cheek. His touch was soft, almost hesitant. For a moment, Claire froze. She should have stepped back, but she didn't. Something shifted. The air felt heavier, warmer, alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Michael didn't say a word, and neither did she. Yet in that silence, both understood what was happening, something neither planned nor asked for. The next day, Claire tried to avoid him. She cleaned the house, rearranged books, anything to keep her thoughts busy. But every corner reminded her of his kindness. The cabinet he fixed, the laughter they shared, the photograph on the counter. When she finally sat down that evening, her phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. "Mom," he said, his voice casual. "Michael's been acting strange lately. He told me he's been seeing someone. Older." Claire's breath caught. "Oh?" she managed, forcing calm into her voice. "Yeah." Ethan chuckled. "I think it's some professor or something." He didn't say who, but he sounded serious about her. She ended the call as soon as she could, her hands trembling. A wave of guilt washed over her. Was it serious for him? What had she allowed to grow between them? That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house seemed louder. The ticking clock, the wind outside, her own racing thoughts. She looked at Daniel's photo beside the bed. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. The next morning, just as dawn broke, she heard footsteps on the porch. Then a gentle knock. Claire's heart pounded. She knew that knock now. When she opened the door, Michael stood there, rain on his hair, eyes full of something she didn't want to name. "I need to tell you something," he said. Claire swallowed hard. "Then come in. What if comfort starts turning into something you can't control?" The air in the house felt different now. Not heavy with grief, but uncertain, like a new chapter she wasn't sure she was ready to read. Claire had grown used to seeing Michael at her doorstep. His visits had become a quiet routine, something she looked forward to without admitting it to herself. One afternoon, he showed up holding a small envelope. "I found this while packing," he said, handing it to her. Inside was a photograph, Ethan's graduation day. Ethan stood in his gown, Michael beside him, both beaming with joy. But Claire's eyes went straight to the edge of the frame. There she was, standing beside Daniel, her smile wide and carefree. Her breath caught. "That feels like a lifetime ago," she murmured. Michael studied the picture, then looked at her. "You look the same," he said softly. Claire laughed, embarrassed. "That's kind of you to say." But the way he said it, so genuine, so certain, lingered in the room. They sat by the window as rain began to fall outside. The soft sound filled the silence between them. Claire talked about Daniel, how he'd worked late nights and still managed to bring her coffee every morning. Michael listened, his eyes full of quiet sympathy. "You must have loved him a lot," he said. "I still do," she replied. Then, after a pause, she added, "But love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape." A tear rolled down her cheek before she could stop it. Without thinking, Michael reached out and wiped it away. His hand was warm, steady, and for one fleeting moment it didn't feel wrong. It felt like breathing again. Claire froze, unsure what to say. She could feel her heart pounding, not from fear, but from something she hadn't felt in years. She stepped back slightly, trying to find her voice. "You should probably go," she whispered. Michael nodded, but his eyes didn't leave hers. "I didn't mean to cross a line," he said softly. "I just hate seeing you hurt." When he left, the silence rushed back, louder than before. Claire stood by the window watching him walk away, the rain blurring his figure until it vanished. She felt both relief and regret, two emotions that didn't belong together, yet somehow did. That night she couldn't stop thinking about that moment, his hand, his voice, his eyes. She kept asking herself what she was doing. Was it loneliness? Or something deeper she didn't dare name? Just as she turned off the lights, her phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Mom," he said, "Michael's been acting strange. He told me he's been seeing someone. Someone older." Her heart skipped. She tried to sound casual. "Did he say who?" "No," Ethan said, but he sounded serious. Claire hung up, her mind spinning. Then, a soft knock echoed through the door again. Her breath caught. She turned slowly toward the sound. It was him, and this time he wasn't smiling. "Do you follow your heart, or protect what's left of it?" When Claire opened the door, Michael stood there, soaked from the rain. His hair clung to his forehead, his eyes filled with something she didn't want to name. Hope, fear, maybe both. He spoke before she could say anything. "I need to tell you the truth," he said. She hesitated but stepped aside. The house felt heavier than usual, as if it too was holding its breath. Michael stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the photographs on the wall. Daniel, Ethan, the family that wasn't his, but had somehow become his anchor. "I told Ethan I was seeing someone," he began quietly. "I didn't say who, but it's you, Claire. It's always been you." The words hit her like a storm. She wanted to interrupt, to stop him, but couldn't. He looked so young, so earnest, and so heartbreakingly sure of what he felt. "Michael," she whispered, "you don't mean that." "I do," he insisted. "You make me feel seen, understood. You listen, you care. You don't look at me like I'm just a kid. You make me want to be better." Claire turned away, her eyes filling with tears. "You don't understand," she said. "I lost my husband, Michael. I lost half of myself, and now I can't lose what's left by making a mistake." He took a small step forward. "It's not a mistake to feel something real." She shook her head, struggling to keep her voice steady. "It is when it hurts the people we love. You're my son's friend. You're part of his world. If I cross that line, I lose him too." The silence that followed was thick, unbearable. The sound of rain against the window was the only thing filling the space between them. Michael's voice softened. "Then tell me what to do, because I can't just pretend this never happened." Claire turned to face him. Her heart felt torn, one side aching for what was gone, the other terrified of what was beginning. "You walk away," she said finally. "You live your life. You find someone your heart doesn't have to hide from." His lips parted as if to argue, but he saw the pain in her eyes and stopped. He nodded slowly. "I just wanted you to know," he whispered. "You helped me see what love really means, even if it's not mine to keep." He walked to the door, pausing one last time. "You'll never be alone again, Claire," he said softly. Then he was gone. The door closed and Claire sank to her knees. The room spun with memories. Daniel's laughter, Michael's smile, Ethan's voice on the phone. She wasn't sure which one hurt most. The next morning, she found a letter in her mailbox. The handwriting was familiar. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. It began with one line. "Claire, I meant every word." Before she could finish reading, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Ethan, and behind him, Michael stepped out,